Hello, everybody. Today we are going to talk about how to preach the needs for change, but never reform too much at once. So, Angeliki, let's go through the judgment.
Yes, everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power or an outsider trying to build a power base, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. So, Maria, what does the history tell us?
Yeah, so we're back in England in the 1520s, where the king at that point is King Henry VIII. And King Henry was actually married to the Catherine of Aragon. They actually had one daughter, but she couldn't have a son. So King Henry wanted really to have a son. So at the same time, he was also in love with Anne Boleyn. And so he wanted to get divorced from Catherine to get married to Anne. Obviously, at that point, we're talking about a Catholic England, very close connections with the Pope in Italy. So through the Catholic Church, you are not allowed to actually get divorced. However, Henry was in love and he wanted to find a way to marry Anne. One of Henry's men in the cabinet was Thomas Cromwell. So he was the only person who not only supported the king on this attempt, but also he gave him an idea of how to realize this. And the idea was to break connections from the Catholic Church, and which meant that Henry will be now the head of an English church now. So this means that then he can do whatever he wants and actually get divorced from Catherine and get Anne.
So how, Maria, did he achieve this? To make this new English Protestant church? How did he achieve this to make a new Protestant English church?
So what he did is he sent spies to across England and he started tracking all the monasteries, and not only which monasteries exist in England, but also how much money and treasures they have. And actually the results were astonishing. So what happened then he started creating stories, like fake stories and circulating stories about how corrupted the church is and how they're abusing the power. And also he went to the parliament and he asked for a bill to be passed, which is to start breaking up all the monasteries, closing down the monasteries and taking all their treasures. At the same time, as he will start doing that and closing all of these places, he start like in a very indirect way passing some Protestantism ideas. Protestantic ideas in the rituals of how, all the spiritual rituals were taking place.
However, Maria, what problems did this create?
Obviously, like the monasteries were taking care of a lot of poor people. So now all of the poor people were on the streets, as well as with all the monks that were supporting or working in the monasteries. So now poor people were on the streets and revolting because apart from closing the monasteries, there were a lot of other bills passed for taxes. So these actually create huge problems for Henry, which was almost, people were almost ready to kick him off the throne. So Henry was like, oh my God, I have to do something about it. So he managed to stop all the revolts, but then he started realizing also how costly all of these ideas of Cromwell were to him. So then he started taking back some of these aggressive reforms of Cromwell.
And he kind of excluded Cromwell as well from power. So what was his last try?
So Cromwell, he starts feeling his downfall. So he has one last attempt, which is, so after Anne Boleyn was executed, then Henry got married to Jane Seymour, who gave him a son, but she died during birth. So then he wanted to have another wife. In this case, Cromwell thought that it's a good idea if he finds him a wife, obviously a Protestant one. He found Anne of Cleves, which is a German princess that was obviously a Protestant. He asked someone to go and paint a portrait of her, and the portrait was apparently much more beautiful than what Henry thought when actually he saw Anne. So he was a little bit disappointed, and that meant for Cromwell that he lost his last chance. Actually, he got arrested for his extremist thoughts and he was executed.
Yes. So, Maria, what do we learn from this example?
What happened with Cromwell in this case? He took all of these actions, but he never envisioned what impact this is going to have and how he could control it. So he completely lost track of what was happening. So you need to be aware when to change things will create anxiety to people, and you have to be able to know how to deal with it, have a plan B on how to control what's going to happen. Okay, so let's go to another historic example. So who is Mao Tse-tung?
So around 1920s in China, Mao Zedong was the leader of the Communist Party. He has understood that it was impossible for the Communist Party to take the victory because it lacked funds and military experience. So Mao Zedong had to find another way to get this victory. And he knew that in order to get this victory, all the peasant population needs to vote for them. The peasant population was very conservative. They liked tradition and they couldn't accept the new ideas of the Communist Party. So Mao Zedong had to find actually a way to make them believe in the communist ideas.
So how did he use all of this past for his own cause?
So Mao understood that he needs to kind of cloak his revolution by using the past and the tradition and Chinese history, basically. So he came up with one idea. He really liked one of the most famous Chinese novels back in the day, The Water Margin, which was kind of a version of Chinese Robin Hood, where people and robbers are getting together and they revolt against the evil emperor. So basically he highlighted the main idea of the whole book, which was how you create family bonds, how you support each other. So he compared himself and his other advisors from the Communist Party as this Robin Hood and robbers who work together for a new regime. And because this book was very traditional and very rooted to Chinese history, the peasantry felt a little bit more comfortable believing in his ideas as well.
Amazing. So he did a really nice connection there on how to use anything comfortable you are familiar with through history and stories into kind of the current world. And then who is this Zhuge Liang and how is this relevant to our story?
Zhuge Liang was a general strategist from the 3rd century, and basically Mao was comparing himself to him and highlighting that they have the same ideas and the same hobbies. Like he was a philosopher, he was a general, a strategist. So he compared himself with a hero from the past, so the peasantry could actually feel more secure and they could see him as a leader in the future.
How did he use the past to get rid of his enemies?
So in the Communist Party, one enemy appeared. His name was Lin Piao. And Piao was basically very familiar with Confucius and he was a supporter of Confucius. So Mao in every speech, he compared his opponent to Confucius and highlighting the main ideas of Confucius. Whereas he compared himself with another philosophical group, the legalism. Legalism believed in revolt in order to achieve something. So by comparing these two, he got rid of his opponent very quickly.
Nice. So what is the learning? How can we apply his lessons?
I think he was very smart in understanding that we need the past and we need to use the past if we want to make a change. So what did he do is basically pass all the new radical ideas of communism by using the past and building on the past. So he used all the Chinese history to actually compare himself to the great heroes of the past by passing kind of indirectly all the new and radical ideas of the Communist Party.
100% different to what Cromwell did.
Exactly.
So Cromwell, he didn't care about the past. Actually, he wanted to eradicate a past that people were really comfortable in and believing in and following. And he was trying just to erase it and build something that he cared about. Where in this case, it was all about, understanding who are the people I need to win, what do they believe in, and how can I build upon it without bringing very strong, aggressive changes.
Perfect. And I think this process was very long. It took years for him to actually establish that. So, Maria, what do we learn from these examples?
Yes. So the first thing is that people understand the need to change. They want change, but not change that really affects them day to day. That is the long story short. Because when you try to change their core habits or what like their day-to-day habits, they really feel the change, and that creates anxiety and stress. So you can preach about change and you can try to do these reforms, but try to link them into older things that people are familiar with. Yeah, so the past is the past, so then you can reinterpret it and add your own flavor in it. Try to keep some things that people are really familiar with and just reinterpret it. For example, you can use an old title from an old story. Another interesting example for me was Charles Darwin, who, when he published his ideas of evolution, actually, he faced a lot of opposition, not from the crowd or from religious people, but from his fellow scientists. And that was because he was actually challenging a lot of fixed ideas proved or believed by scientists.
What could he do differently?
Yeah, he could have not kind of challenged all of these fixed ideas altogether, like start
slowly,
talk about it, start with one of those, and then
see the action,
see the action, and then adjust, and then people get more used to what you are saying, right? And then you can build upon it. So this is the lesson, actually. So if you're going aggressive to the ideas you want to change, make sure they are not seen as innovative as they really are, because that will create a lot of anxiety and opposition.